Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text number 6, chapter 3rd from Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Karmendriyani samyamya ya aste manasa smarana indriyarthan vimudatma mithyacharah sa uchyate. One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. So, word for word, karma indriyani, the 5 working sense organs, samyamya, controlling, ya, anyone who, aste, remains, manasa, by the mind, smaran, thinking of, indriya arthan, sense objects, vimuda, foolish, atma, soul, mithyacharaha, pretender, sa, he, uchyate, is called. So, it's the ongoing theme. We'll just read the purport now by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. There are many pretenders who refuse to work in Krishna consciousness but make a show of meditation while actually dwelling within the mind upon sense enjoyment. Such pretenders may also speak on dry philosophy in order to bluff sophisticated followers. But according to this verse, these are the greatest cheaters. For sense enjoyment, one can act in any capacity of the social order, but if one follows the rules and regulation of his particular status, he can make gradual progress in purifying his existence. But he who makes a show of being a yogi while actually searching for the objects of sense gratification must be called the greatest cheater, even though he sometimes speaks of philosophy. His knowledge has no value because the effects of such a sinful man's knowledge are taken away by the illusory energy of the Lord. Such a pretender's mind is always impure, and therefore his show of yogic meditation has no value whatsoever. Karmendriyani samyamya ya aste manasa smarana indriyarthan vimudatma mithyacharah sa uchyate. Om Agyanam Timrindasya Gyananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam tam sajivam Advaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vichakhanvitam cha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenbandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrinda Baneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So it's an ongoing theme where Krishna in chapter 2 has established that the living entity who is Dehi, who is embodied in this framework of material senses is a soul, and therefore the requirement of the soul is very different to the requirement of the material senses. It was established that the soul is eternal, soul is joyful, soul is full of bliss, and the material energy of which the senses are made of is full of illusion, temporary, transient, and therefore not permanent, and have no capacity to give the full enjoyment that soul is seeking. And therefore, we find that Krishna is emphasizing continuously on this theme of sense and sense objects. Senses are created, and it's mentioned there are 5 working senses. We have our eyes, nose, mouth, ears, skin, then we have genitals. So this way, all these sense organs are there. And who is the king of these senses? The mind. So mind is controlling all the senses. And it is mentioned towards the end of the purport that there are people who are pretenders and their mind is always impure. And what does it mean when it says that mind is always impure? It's not that some sort of material impurity is there in the mind. There is an infection. That infection is called the infection of enjoying the senses. And that infection is contaminating the purity of the thoughts and desires in the mind. Now, this infection is contagious. This infection, if you have it, you give it to others. If others have it, you will get it. But if somebody hasn't got any infection, then you are likely to get that pure desires. So the principle of association becomes extremely important. Now, how do we identify who do we want to associate with, or who are we associating with? Is somebody who has got pure sense, pure mind, pure desires? Am I myself desiring to be with them who have pure desires? Or my own pretension, propensity is playing upon in my mind? And on one side, I'm desiring to advance in spiritual life. And on the other side, I'm also desiring to enjoy the material pains and pleasures of this world. So the intent that we carry in our heart, in reciprocation to that intent, the Supreme Lord and the material nature will arrange the association that we will get. So if there is sincerity in the heart and there's devotion in the heart, then it is but obvious that a guru will be sent for the guidance in our life. These gurus, there are many types of such gurus. One is Path Pradarshak Guru, the one who is pointing you to that direction. He can be a book distributor. He can be the first person who invited us in any program of Hare Krishna movement. He can be someone who answered our first very question, or who questioned us about our life and we opened up to him. He may not be the one who has handholded us, but he is the one who has brought us in touch with Krishna consciousness. Similarly, as we grow on the path of Krishna consciousness, we'll get people, Shiksha Gurus, who are guiding us on our daily, weekly, monthly, yearly level or frequency. And we are somehow or the other trying to get the association. And finally, once you advance a bit more, you get a Siksha Guru, Diksha Guru, one who officially initiate you into the parampara of Krishna consciousness. In particularly for our movement is Gauriya Parampara, Gauriya Vaishnava Parampara, under leadership of Srila Prabhupada, who is the eminent Acharya of ISKCON. He is the Siksha Guru of entire ISKCON community now and for the eternal time to come, at least 10,000 years to come. So this way, there's a process laid down where we can see how we can remove the contamination of the mind. But does the initiation ensures, pardon me, does the initiation ensures that we are now becoming um, aware that we want to be progressing in the spiritual life? So to that, answer is that initiation is the beginning. Again, it will be depending upon the sincerity of the devotee. How much does he desire to progress? Prabhupada has mentioned it many times, and we would have heard this small clip where Prabhupada is saying, in a moment, and he again repeated himself, in a moment. It depends upon your surrender. And in a moment, you can be with Krishna. You can walk out of this body, leave this body behind, and walk out of it and embrace Krishna. And this can be done in a moment. How do you surrender to Krishna in a moment? And when we get the pure association of the sadhu, one who is himself pure, then that is a possibility. Otherwise, it is said in the purport, it is being said as mithyachari. Mithyachari is somebody who's pretentious. So I can put a nice tilak, I can put a nice kanti mala, nice dhoti, and I can be a pretentious. I can pretend to be a devotee. Who would ever know? Only Krishna in our heart, Supreme Personality of Godhead, as in the form of Super Soul, knows about it. Otherwise, nobody knows about it. So one can act on the platform of being pretentious. Why pretentious? Because I may have ulterior motives. I may have come to with a desire to gain name, to gain fame. Once people have trust on you, it's easy to uh, develop wealth, financial gains. It's easy to find a beautiful person to partner with. So where Shikshashtam is saying, na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam vam, jagadish kame. One who is mithyachari is feeling inside that, no, just opposite. Dhanam, janam, sundarim. Everything is required. And therefore, I can pretend to be whatever I pretend to. At sometimes I can be sincere, but other times I can pretend. So I can be semi sort of a devotee, pseudo. Otherwise, pretension word is by Srila Prabhupada is used for those who are pretending to be devotees of the Lord, not just as ISKCON devotees, but overall. But they're not devotees of the Lord. They might be impersonalist. They might be materialist. And we see big governments, big rich people, they all pretend to be doing something for the benefit of the society, for the benefit of the humanity, for benefit of the religiosity, giving charities, holding in India still you can see holding big yagnas. But the motive is very simple. How do I get more wealth? How do I get more fame? If I'm doing charity, the media should publish it, and I should be known that this much money I have given, even if it is a mundane charity for things like Corona. I was seeing the news that time. This particular corporate group has donated 100 crores or 200 crores or 1,000 crores, and their name is getting uh, relayed in all the public media. But these are all some sorts of pretensions. It's very rare, very rare to find the real devotee of the Lord. It's so rare that Krishna himself identifies that in Bhagavad Gita, that His devotees are extremely, extremely rare. And if you find one that just by his association, life can change. And that is what has happened when Srila Prabhupada arrived in the West. He changed the life of people just by his association. So now this verse actually points out that how do we not become pretentious? Controlling the senses is not one of the easiest thing to do because we are not at a self-realized platform. We are at a platform of conditioning. We are conditioned by the modes of nature. Somebody is conditioned by goodness, some other person is conditioned by passion, and yet by ignorance, or the mixes of these. And we behave and think and desire according to conditioning. Because we are conditioned, we are also conditioned to enjoy through the senses when we are in the material world for that long. And to develop detachment from the propensity of enjoying through the senses and just control the senses is also a challenge for the conditioned soul. In Nectar of Instruction, the very first verse talks about control of senses. It says if you can control your senses, then of course you have to be a devotee, that's a prerequisite. Then you can have followers, shishyat, on the entire earth. Now, not that we want to achieve that status of some guru that has disciples all over the planet, but it tells you that what can be achieved by controlling the senses. By controlling the senses, vacha vegam manasah krodha vegam jivva vegam udarupastha vegam. One who can control his speech, vacha vegam, manasaha krodha vegam, mind, control the mind, krodha, one who can control the anger. Jivva vegam udarupastha vegam, one who can control tongue. And udar, which is your belly. Etan vegan yo vishahata dhiraha, one who can control these urges. And he's called dhira. Sarvam apimam prithvim sasishyat, qualified to make disciples all over the world. Urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals. So, in this particular verse and purport, Srila Prabhupada has beautifully explained that controlling the senses does not mean that you stop using the senses. You still use the senses. But how do you use the senses? Not like elephant bathing. Elephant goes, bathes, and then comes out and start putting all the dust back on his body. So when Parikshit Maharaj was talking to Sukhdev Goswami, he was saying that this priyashchit that is mentioned is like elephant bathing. How do we really get rid of the desires within? What is that kind of change in the desires in the heart? Because this priyashchit is only meant to counteract the sinful reaction of the activities. So there are many prescriptions in the Vedas that can counteract. If you have done certain sinful activity, then you can go do this yagna, worship that particular devata, go and do this particular rituals in this direction at that point in time, and give this kind of charity. There are so many upchar. But if you do that upchar, Prabhupada has mentioned like Christians, they go to the church and then they ask or beg forgiveness, and once in a week. Once you have done that, it is understood that you would not get any reactions. And then for the rest of the week, you come back and you again do the sins. And again, you go back and confess about your sins. Like that, the propensity of sinning is not going. The only submission of the sin that I have committed a sin. So how do we get rid of this propensity of sinning? How does that real atonement comes? That real atonement will come only by the real knowledge. That knowledge is not a dry knowledge. It's the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. If one is understanding that by following certain principles, by following celibacy, by following the control of senses, and we can by not eating meat or intoxication, gambling, etc. Like that, we can refrain from certain activities. At the same time, we can engage in certain activities. Power of speech can be utilized in glorifying the Lord. The power of hunger or the tongue can be utilized in chanting the holy names of the Lord and tasting nice prashadam. And similarly, that will control the belly and that will control the urges of the sex organs that has been given into the body. So this way we can see that um, all the senses can be controlled, and the most important sense has been talked about is jiva. So one can control the tongue, then all other senses can be controlled. Now, controlling the tongue has been made so easy because you can utilize tongue in singing the glories of the Lord, chanting of the holy names, and then taking prashadam only. Now, when we talk about prashadam only, it's a very important principle that we eat prashadam only, not that we eat anything without offering it to the Lord. And then in that, there are multiple categories of what is prashadam really? Is prashadam something made by anybody and then you offer it? Is prashadam something that you cook with love and devotion and offer it to the Lord? What is prashadam? Is prashadam a material thing? Is prashadam a spiritual thing? So our understanding is that prashadam is a spiritual expansion of the Lord himself, because Lord has lovingly glanced over that um, prashadam, over the bhoga. Now, is it that Krishna wants the bhoga from us? Srila Prabhupada has explained very clearly that Krishna has no dearth of bhoga. He has got unlimited, infinite Lakshmi Devi serving him to whatever he wants to be served with. So that is not what Krishna wants. What is it that Krishna wants? Krishna wants the devotion behind the activity. Now, that devotion will determine the quality of prasad. So, Srila Prabhupada says that your activity in Krishna consciousness, the sincerity, the devotion, the intent of your activity in Krishna consciousness determines the quality of your devotion, and to that extent, Krishna will give you reciprocation. Now, when we commit to eat prasadam, we have to understand that it's not something that I want to eat and therefore I'll offer it and oblige Krishna by doing that. And that way, I foolproof myself that I've done that ritual and then I'm saved. That's all right. That's something we must do. But then, as we grow in Krishna consciousness, the quality of our devotion in cooking bhoga has to improve. And Srila Prabhupada wonderfully explains that if just one activity of offering prasadam will purify us completely. How? Somebody who's earning by working at whatever place of work, um, he earns the result of that working, and that working result is money. With that money, he goes out to the best of the best places and buys best of the best foodstuffs to offer to the Lord. Because we are offering to the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you won't go and buy anything. You will see that the quality of the food is extremely high and pure, that it can be offered to the Lord. Obviously, it has to be vegetarian, all the dairy products, etc. But you can't just offer things which are not to be offered, like meat products or eggs or um, um, anything to do with liquor and drugs and all kind of things which are not allowed to be offered. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya priyakshati. This is the guideline. Krishna himself is saying. It's not made up. It's not something that our acharyas are just saying it. Krishna himself is saying. He's saying, you offer me this. If you don't, then you're eating sins invariably. So you offer this to me, and then I'll accept it. But how? With love and devotion. So Once you buy all the bhoga with intent of offering it to the Lord, if you have deities or pictures at home, you're constantly meditating upon the Lord. This way, intelligence is getting purified. And when you buy that and you give that result of your work to that shopkeeper for offering it to Krishna, then your work is getting purified because now you are giving result of your work to Krishna. It's not going out of the way at all. So merciful, so easy process. And then when you come home, you then cook with lot of love and devotion. And that bhoga is then offered to the Lord, which is accepted by the Lord. Krishna can just eat by his glance. And in return, the whole bhoga is given back to for purifying our tongue and purifying our senses. So that's one way of looking at things. Other way of looking at things is that how do we engage our senses in the service of the Lord? And Krishna consciousness is about Yukta Vairagya. So I would like to read this particular letter which Srila Prabhupada has written to His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Tomorrow again, I am speaking on the next verse, which is about engaging the senses, and I'll be reading from this book called The Servant of the Servant by His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Some very funny pastimes about Prashadam. But today, I want to talk about the engagement, that if we engage our senses into the service of the Lord, one engagement I talked about purifying our senses in purify our jiva or tongue. Other engagement now can be about using our intelligence, using our body and mind in the mission of the Lord. And this is a beautiful letter sent by Srila Prabhupada on December 28, 1974, from Juhu, Bombay. My dear Tamal Krishna Goswami, please accept my blessings. I am in due receipt of your letter dated 12th of November 74, and I have noted the contents carefully. I was extremely pleased to hear your report from your traveling buses. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, to give you a background, was running these Damodar parties. And the Damodar party was nothing but were buses, and each bus had the deity inside, and there was a place to sleep and to cook. And devotees in groups, they were traveling in these Damodar bus parties, and they were distributing books all over America. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj had great success in doing that. And in that context, Srila Prabhupada is writing back when Tamal Krishna Maharaj has shared what is he doing and how successful or the mission is going in America. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada is saying, I was extremely pleased to hear a report from your traveling buses. It sounds as if your program is very, very wonderful, and I'm very encouraged to hear that such a program is coming along so nicely. I'm glad that you have understood the importance of my books. Therefore, I am stressing it so much. Let everyone take these books. If he simply reads one page, then he's getting something substantial, a real eternal benefit. Or if he hands it over to his friend and he reads one page, the same result is there. So continue these festivals constantly and make them all Krishna conscious. Overflood the whole country by this preaching work. Let the whole United States become Vaishnavas. Then everyone else in the whole world will follow. That is my real ambition. Therefore, your program is very glorious. This is really preaching. Your intelligence is being properly utilized. In the beginning, you took up the distribution of BTGs and you sold the most. Now you have taken up this Venn program, and you will also be successful in the same way. This preaching spirit will make you recognized by Krishna. There's so much wonderful potential in USA for this type of program. So organize hundreds of such parties. This is fulfilling the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I am very glad to hear that not only you are maintaining such program, but that you want to expand it. Yes, this is our philosophy. Anandam Buddhivardhanam. It means to expand or to increase. Therefore, I strongly okay, sorry, some of the pages have just gone too fast. Yeah. Therefore, I strongly encourage you to double your program by getting 3 more buses if you can do it. There is no difficulty. BBT will help. I have written Hamsaduta one letter to give you the loan. BBT means 50% is of printing books and 50% for construction of temples. So your buses are all moving temples. So don't worry. There will be no scarcity of money. Go on with your program and increase more and more. In the end of your letter, you mention that people are not very much eager to go to temples, but with your program, you're bringing the temples to the people. Yes, this is a very important point you have picked up. You have picked up this idea very nicely of bringing temples to the people. In this way, you will give everyone the opportunity to step in the direction of back to Godhead, back to home. So you and Vishnujan Maharaj and all of your nice brahmacharis continue strongly with great enthusiasm and determination to spread this Krishna consciousness movement all over your country, and Lord Chaitanya will certainly be pleased with you. I hope this meets you in good health. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. This letter is so amazing. And further on, Tamal Krishna Maharaj has given his understanding of this letter. And he mentioned that Srila Prabhupada has talked about constancy, which means a preacher must contain a strict program of sadhana to ensure his steadiness of purpose. So if there is a goal, and that goal is consistently to be achieved, then there'll be no lethargy caused by ignorance, or mode of passion will not disrupt the program of serving mood. That constancy is required. This way, preacher can maintain a vigilant guard in his field of preaching. Sorry, somebody has unmuted. Please, can everybody mute themselves? Okay. So this way, the preacher can maintain, or a devotee can maintain his intent of fulfilling the spiritual goals. So one way to control the senses here is that we make spiritual goals and we do it constantly in a consistent way. Then second point Tamal Krishna Maharaj is mentioning is about ambition. A Vaishnava is permitted to have aggressive ambitions, providing that desires are pure, the intention is pure. And therefore, he said that docility and preaching goes very ill together. Therefore, one should have very aggressive preaching mood, or a missionary mood with big goals and ambitions. If one has that, then our goal are to our ambition is to satisfy Krishna, and that way we will have pure desires sanctioned by Krishna, and which will keep us on our track. And third thing he's talking about from this letter is intelligence. Prabhupada mentioned about intelligence. You're utilizing your intelligence. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj says that intelligence is defined as the power to analyze things in proper perspective. In this particular context, he's saying in Krishna conscious perspective. So if one is utilizing intelligence in uh, fulfilling the goals of what spiritual master wants, then that's a perfect intelligence. But if one thinks that his intelligence is more than the intelligence of the spiritual master or the devotees who are guiding him, it can be any service in the temple, it can be a day-to-day activity. But if we are getting some guidance from somebody senior, but at some point in time we start thinking that my intelligence is more than yours and I can do better than you, etc., then that is not a good intelligence. A good intelligence is that is something which should free ourselves from the desire of material opulence and sense gratification by performing austerities. That kind of intelligence will become very useful to fulfill Krishna's desire. And there was another point mentioned about Anandam Buddhivardhanam. Prabhupada has mentioned in the letter, expansion. So Tamal Krish Maharaj is stating that spiritual master and Supreme Lord, they both become unlimitedly happy to see the Krishna conscious movement expand. So therefore, this dynamic growth is an aspect of spiritual life that is also present in the spiritual world, where the relationship between Krishna and his pure devotees is always expanding. I was reading this morning that when Krishna sees gopis happy, because gopis become very happy when they see Krishna happy. So their eyes and their expressions become very big and wide. But when Krishna sees these expressions of gopis, Krishna becomes very joyful inside. And when Krishna becomes so joyful inside, and then when gopis sees that again, they become so more joyful inside. And then they further become, the expressions become very, very wide and smiley. And therefore this joy leads to another level of joy in Krishna. And this whole cycle of exchange of joy, which is multiplying hundreds of times every time, is never ending, and it's something that keep increasing in the spiritual world. So one cannot gauge the amount of happiness and joy a soul can go through this process. Similarly, Tamal Krish Maharaj is saying that devotees are trying to double it, triple it, their book distributions each year. So this whole, because Prabhupada is saying that you expand and Prabhupada becoming happy. And then devotees, when see Prabhupada is becoming happy, they try to become more happier by distributing more books, then Prabhupada becomes more happy. And that way this exchange goes on between the devotees and Prabhupada and his disciples, which is still going on and would continue to go on. And then there was a point mentioned in the letter about recognition, and Tamal Krish Maharaj in his commentary says that to draw attention of Krishna is the goal of his spiritual life. The best and easiest way to do this is to preach Krishna consciousness, as the Lord himself confirms in Bhagavad Gita. Nachatasman manusyesu kaschin me priyakritam maha. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear who is preaching the mission of Krishna consciousness. And this can be done in our time by simply distributing Srila Prabhupada books, sharing with everybody about Krishna consciousness, Dake Deko Tare Kaho Krishna Upadesh, sharing our experiences with strangers, making them friends, treat them well, give them prasadam, give them books, literature, somehow or other, get them in the party of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, singing and dancing on the roads, and living a life of complete devotion in the service of Srila Prabhupada, in the service of expanding the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This way we can give meaning to the verse that was mentioned in Bhagavad Gita today. And that is what then we are not going to be mithyacharis, you see. We are not going to be pretenders. We will simply be sincere devotees who are trying to restrain from the senses of action and not dwelling on the sense objects. Karmendriyani sanyamya ya aste manasa smarana. Indriyarthan vimoolatma mithyachara uchyate. So these people who are trying to be someone else, who are trying to restrain their senses, they will never be able to understand this philosophy of Krishna consciousness, how that we can utilize our senses, our intelligence, our mind into the service of Krishna, and therefore we will look like one who is utilizing materially everything, but it is for the service of Krishna, and not in my possession, not for my own pleasure. It's not lust of this world. It's love, love. Vishuddha Sattva. Beyond Tamo, Rajo, and Satguna is Vishuddha Sattva, which is the purity of a spiritual world. That is what one could experience through the devotional, through offering the devotional service to the Lord and through the parampara of Krishna consciousness. So I'll stop this session here. If there are comments and anybody wants to pose a question, please feel free to do so. Hare Krishna. So there's a question here. If one engages oneself in sense enjoyment, is it wrong to be performing devotional service at the same time? Or should perform devotional service anyway in the hope it will help purify oneself? So, second option, one should perform devotional service in the hope that one day it will help us purify, because devotional service has the power that it can give you instant happiness. Also, it has the power that it can burn the karmic reactions of many lifetimes. Not only the karmic reactions, but also the propensity to sin will be reduced and diminished. It can also take away and burn to ashes the desires seated in our heart in the form of seed, waiting for the right environment to fructify. Devotional service has the power to actually burn those seeds of desires where the process of confession, mithyachar, impersonalism will never reach to that stage. Devotional service is so powerful. Shubhada, it gives all auspiciousness, and Sangaratma, uh, what was that word? A concentrated bliss. You get concentrated bliss, and at the same time, devotional service not only takes away the karmic reaction, but also takes away the desire to sin. What happens when you perform activities of certain nature? It causes, let's say, it's a sense gratificatory process, and one performs that particular action. By doing that action, two things happen. One, of course, the sense enjoyment, whatever one is wanting to achieve, uh, will cause certain type of reaction, and that reaction one has to take in the future. At the same time, it also develops a higher degree of intensity to commit that sins again. It's like an addiction. So one does the sin, will hold the karmic reaction, at the same time have the propensity to sin again. It's like that thief who wants to go and who got the wealth, now he wants to steal again because he wants more wealth. And it will go on. It will not come to an end. And therefore, but what devotional service does, it not only takes away the reaction, also the byproduct, which was to have a sinful propensity, it takes away that propensity also. So therefore, there's no ifs and buts about performing devotional service. Now, devotional service can be performed in mode of passion, ignorance also sometimes, passion, and goodness. So if we perform devotional service more in mode of goodness under the guidance of advanced devotees, we will not go wrong. Eventually, we'll achieve the goal of annabhilashita shunyam. There is no material contaminated desire in our heart. Get rid of this process of janma, mrityu, jara, and vyadhi. There's another question here. It says, realistically, how much of senses are anyone controlled in this material world? Soul has a desire. This is the main reason for rebirth. It's only after fulfilling the soul's desires can one think of redirecting the senses. Are devotional is important? Okay. Are devotional services important or charity services? Okay. So, soul has a desire, and that desire is certainly the desire to serve the Supreme. That is the only desire that soul has. There's no other desire that soul has. But the problem is that when soul comes in touch with mode of passion, kama esha, krodha esha, rajogud samadbhava, mahachano mahapapama vidhiyanamiya veridam. When soul comes in touch of mode of passion, which is a part of this material world, at that time, the desires to enjoy the material world called as calm or lust is produced. The solution is given that if we raise our soul to the mode of goodness or mind to the soul mode of goodness, then this lust will disappear in due course of time. Therefore, to think that soul will desire anyway is a good thing, but the desire of the soul, therefore, basically we are not able to follow the soul's desire, and therefore unhappy in this material world. It's like trying to drink water in the desert, but every time you get only sand in your mouth, and that is the experiences in of the material world. Mind desires something, you want to fulfill it, you achieve that something, and you feel unsatisfied, and you want to achieve more or something else that will satisfy me. And it's a non-ending process, unsatiable desires, because you're putting oil in the fire every time you try to fulfill the material desires. And they will never be fulfilled. Therefore, it is important to look back and see what is soul's desires. Soul is only desiring loving service to the Supreme Lord, because that is the eternal dharma of the soul as described by scriptures, and our acharyas and Srila Prabhupada explained the same thing. If we achieve that particular desire of the soul, then this is perfect Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we will be choosing to fulfill the desires of the mind through the senses, and every time we will further become contaminated and impurified desires will come. Impurified desires means desiring to fulfill to enjoy my own senses, and purified desire is to enjoy the senses of the Lord. And that is how the lust and love is differentiated in our Shastra. Therefore, it's important that we redirect our senses in the service of the Lord. Are devotional services important or charity services? So charity, Krishna has said in Bhagavad Gita, are of three types: mode of passion, goodness, and ignorance. If we give charity in mode of goodness, that is good. But Srila Prabhupada in his purports have explained that if you give charity for the cause of Krishna consciousness, that will be the highest level of devotional service. Not everybody is able to participate directly. Charity can be given by time, giving time to Krishna conscious movement, giving money to Krishna conscious movement, or you can speak nice words about Krishna consciousness. And that way, all that charity that you are doing will be considered as devotional service. So these are not two mutually exclusive subjects. If you're giving anything with love and devotion to Lord Krishna, that is devotional service. At the same time, it can be considered as charity also. But there are other type of charities like opening hospitals, opening, they are humanitarian activities. They will take you to the planets of demigods, and you will achieve a lot of pious credits. But these are temporary in nature, and therefore someday they will last. And when you are in demigods planets as one of the demigods, Someday, one day you have to return back. Whereas Krishna says in Gita, if you come to me and my planet, you will never go back. Na nivartante. You will never go back to the planets of material world. And therefore, that charity, chasing that kind of pure devotional service is more important than giving mundane charities for the mundane causes. There's another question and comment. Hare Krishna Prabhu, person who chants with us really nicely, pay attention to Bhagavad Gita, but have some sense enjoyment talks also. Should we continue to include such in our group chanting or not? Is that association okay? As long as association means what? When we share our intimate heart feelings with somebody else in confidentiality, that is association. So this kind of group chanting is happening, and there are people who have something to talk about, etc. It's okay. We not necessarily associate with them, rather we give them the association. We talk about Krishna consciousness. If they are redirecting conversations to somewhere else, we can focus. If they are new, they will be propensity to talk of something else than Krishna consciousness. So be it. Let them share. But we will continue to share what we have in our mind. Our minds must be full of Krishna consciousness. So when we speak words of Prabhupada, we speak words of literature of Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. Nothing else must come out of our speech. That way, the person who has come with us and chanting with us will also gain and have advantage. But to discriminate, unless they are gross misconducts are there, then it's not so nice to be in association with that person. Or if their hearts are always full of lust and their activities are very lusty and they're not following to improve themselves in Krishna consciousness, then that's not a very nice association. That's where we can decide not to follow. There's a question. Soul desire is also peace. Thank you for the. Is soul desire also peace? That's the question. Okay. So peace is a state of mind where there is no misery. You become peaceful. When there are miseries, we become very restless. Our mind becomes very restless. So the cessation of misery in the material world is considered to be happiness, and that happiness is deemed as peace. So one can be very peaceful by merging in Brahman Jyoti for some time, for example. If one gets the liberation and merge in Brahman Jyoti, you are sleeping in peace forever. But there is no activity. It's a very neutral state of mind. Whereas soul is used to joy, ever increasing, never ending, permanent, joyful state, which is very different from being peaceful. Being peaceful is a neutral state, but being joyful is a positive state. That's where the soul wants to be. And this joy that one will experience, the soul experiences this joy, is much, much higher and beyond being very peaceful. Peace can be attained. There's a peace-giving formula that in Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada has mentioned. Bhoktaram yaga tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram gyattamam shantim rakshiti. So basically, Krishna is saying that one who knows that I am the enjoyer, Bhoktaram yagyata, of all the tapasyas and all the yagyas, sarva loka maheshwaram, and he knows that I am the controller of all the universes. Such people can be very peaceful in their mind because they will not strive to control. They will not strive to enjoy. They know that enjoyer is someone else. They know that controller is someone else, and I'm only a puppet, so to say, in the hands of nature and to the karmic reactions of my own actions. So this person will remain peaceful. But that is not our goal. Our goal is to become joyful in the service of the Lord. And that way, soul will become feel very, very nice. There's a question. Does association just mean people we associate with, or can it mean what we watch on TV, listen to on radio? Oh, yes, a very important point you have raised. The association means that anything, see, we have these senses, and these senses have functions. These senses are input devices. whatever we input, that goes in our consciousness. Input can happen through our eyes. Input can have, mind doesn't know that it's real or not real. For 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 soul, everything is unreal. But for mind, the television is as real experience. It doesn't know any difference because it will generate certain emotions in the mind, and that experience will be preserved in the mind, and it will come back at the right time. So anything that we expose our eyes to, our ears to, that is feeding into the desires, and that desires is mind is a reservoir of the desires, and that's how, if we associate with TV, Srila Prabhupada has said that we have so much to talk about Krishna. We should open news channels about Krishna. And nowadays, devotees are doing that. It's Ananta Shesh with his unlimited mouths can continue to talk for unlimited period of time and still will not be able to exhaust all the pastimes of Lord Krishna. So much news we have. So Prabhupada has mentioned that we should just go on talking about Krishna's news to everybody instead of watching these mundane news, because they're temporary. They will only fulfill our heart with desires, and these desires will force us to work hard in this lifetime and multiple lifetimes to come. Like a ghost, they will ride upon us and they will make us work very, very hard. But that's not the nature of the soul. The nature of the soul is to be in the service of the Lord, in relationship with the Lord, either in Shanta Rasa or in Sakhya Rasa or Dasya Rasa, or parental Vatsalya Rasa, or Madhurya Rasa or Parakya Rasa, the highest rasa available in the Goloka. In that relationship, there's joy, and that soul is hankering for that joy. But in this simulation is trying to achieve that happiness through the senses and terribly failing every time. So we don't want to be in this stage. Thank you very much. It's 9 o'clock. I hope I have given answers which are satisfactory. If there are doubts and questions to be still answered, we can take up tomorrow. I'm again coming in the session, so we can talk about them tomorrow. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvaiva cha patitanam papnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
very
much,
much,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
Have a nice
Hare
day.
Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.